Okay, good morning. We are learning Lila Nishmas Mindel, Mariam Bas Kamen Ruvain. We're in Chav Gimel Amud Beis. Okay, here we go. So by the two dots. Okay, we're continuing our discussion of Hanukkah. It says Amar Yitzchak bar Radifa, Amar Rav Huna, Ner sheyesh la shnei pios, a lamp that has two openings on different sides of its cover. In other words, let's say you have like a bowl, and you have a lamp on each side of this bowl, right? With me, like about six lines down on Chav Gimel Amud Beis. Yeah, did I say we're learning Lila Nishmas Mindel, Mariam Bas Kamen Ruvain, and Sham Leah? Did I say that? I'm not sure. Okay. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Radifa, Amar Rav Huna, Ner sheyesh la shnei pios, a lamp that has two openings on different sides of the bowl. Two people can use it. In other words, let's say, make it simple, it's day one of Hanukkah, and you have one bowl, okay, and two people want to light. So it's one kli, it's one menorah, but there's a wick over here and a wick over here. So one person can light over here, Yot to the mitzvah, one person can light over here, Yot to the mitzvah. Rava, Mile Ka'ara, Shemen V'kifa Psilos. Let's say you have a dish that's surrounded with wicks. In other words, you have this bowl, and a wick over here, wick over here, wick over here, wick over here. So there's wicks all around the bowl by the edges. Lo kafa kli o l'chamani adam. If you placed a utensil on it, covering it, then a number of people, each person lighting, let's say there's 6 wicks, 6 people can light. It's 6 separate wicks. Lo kafa kli asa k'mi medura. If a person did not place a some form of cover over it, then it doesn't work. It's become like a bonfire. And even for one person, it would not be able to fulfill his obligation. The concern over here is that the wicks, without something blocking them, they're going to combine, right? Sometimes you have like 2 wicks next to each other. Sometimes it happens in the Hanukkah candles. You have 2 wicks over here, and then they start to melt, and somehow they become one big thing. That's what the concern is. If you don't have something on top of the bowl preventing the wicks from joining with one another, then there's a concern that's going to come together one fire, and we're looking to light individual candles and not to light a bonfire, and that would not work. Again, this is probably not so relevant nowadays, but theoretically, again, you have a bowl a bowl that you want to have 2 people lighting from with wicks and 2 people lighting from that bowl. What you need to do is have some form of utensil on top of it, preventing the wicks from combining, and then 2 people could use it, or even more than 2 people, as long as there's a bit of a space between each wick. A number of people can use it as their menorah. Okay?
We don't quantify how much that space is.
I believe the post can speak about a tefach. This be the space, yeah. But you're right, the Gemara itself does not say it. Rava, Pshitali. Rava says as follows, very famous Gemara. Ner Beisav Ner Chanukah. A person has enough to light Shabbos candles and enough to light a Chanukah menorah. Just pausing and appreciating the craziness of this question and how it's not even like something which would even cross your mind. But a person has just enough money to buy one of those. They have one ability to light one candle. Or whatever, let's say a scenario, a person's traveling, whatever it might be, and they only have one candle. It's right before Shabbos, okay? And you could light the candle for Friday nights for your Shabbos candles, or you could light it for your Ner Chanukah. Which one do you do? Ner Beso Adif, Mishum Shlom Beso. The lighting the Shabbos candle is better because the fact that it brings peace to the house. The idea behind Shabbos candles, a couple of reasons given in the Gemara, but one of them is Shalom Bayis. What's the Shalom Bayis? Shalom Bayis is very simple. Shalom Bayis is that you're not going to be bumping into things. Again, keep in mind, in their homes, without a candle, it's pitch black. And if it's pitch black, you're not able to be in harmony. You're not able to be at peace because you don't see what's going on. You're bumping into each other, bumping into things. In order to create a serene household, it's important that there's light in the house, right? Light is critical. And therefore, in order to ensure that there's shalom bayis, that is much more important. Again, keep in mind, both lighting Shabbos candles and lighting Hanukkah candles are both Rabbanan. So from that perspective, they're both the same. And we say, lighting the candles is better. Says the Gemara further, says Rava further, Ner Beso of Kiddush Yom, a person has enough for Shabbos candles and for Kiddush. Now, the poskim point out, many poskim suggest, we're talking about Kiddush, they're pointing out that what we're talking about over here is a person does have money for challah, right? If you don't have wine, you're able to make Kiddush over bread, right? So we're talking about a scenario where a person's still going to be Yotzei Kiddush Doraisa, but there's a rabbinic benefit, a rabbinic mitzvah to make Kiddush over wine. So over here, you're going to fulfill the Doraisa. The question is, you have a Dorabanan of making Kiddush over wine, which is important, or you're going to use that money for buying a candle for Shabbos candles, says the Gemara, Ner Beso, Adav Mishum Shalom Beso. So again, Rava says that lighting Shabbos candles is better because of the shalom that it brings. By Rava asks as follows though. Those are the ones that are obvious to him. What he's not sure about is as follows. Ner Chanukah v'Kiddush Hayom. You have enough for Ner Chanukah, or to use it for wine that you're going to use for Kiddush. Mahu. Kiddush Yom Adif to Tadir. Is making Kiddush over wine better since it's something which is more common? It happens every week. We have a principle, Tadir v'she'eno Tadir, Tadir Kadim. If it's something which is common versus something which is uncommon, then the thing which is common is more important. O Dilma, Ner Chanukah Adif, Mishum Pirsumei Nisa, or do you want to say that there's some benefits about lighting Chanukah candles because the fact this great thing called Pirsumei Nisa, which is that on Chanukah we are trying to publicize the nes. It's a unique characteristic of Chanukah, and therefore using the money for a Chanukah candle would be better. Answers Rava Basri Baya Hadar Pashta. After you ask the question, he answered it. Ner Chanukah Adif Mishum Pirsumei Nisa. That lighting a Chanukah candle is more important than buying wine for Kiddush because Pirsumei Nisa, spreading the nes, letting people know about the miracle, is a greater deal. Okay, fine. Amar Rav Huna, Haragil b'ner Havian le banim talmidei chachamim. A person who is accustomed to lighting Shabbos and Chanukah candles will have children who are Torah scholars. Okay, Hazayir b'mezuzah. Fine. Hazar b'mezuzah zoch l'dirna. A person who lights, is very careful about mezuzah, making sure they have a kosher mezuzah, making sure the mezuzahs are in the right places, making sure that they're being checked appropriately. Then it's associated with one's home, and therefore they'll merit to have a beautiful home. Zoch l'dirna. Hazar b'tzitzis. A person who is careful about making sure they have kosher tzitzis and they're wearing tzitzis and the knots are correct, etc., etc. Zoch l'talasna. They'll merit to have a beautiful garment. Of course, tzitzis are something which is associated with our clothing. Hazar b'kiddush hayom zoche umale garba yain. A person who's careful about making kiddush on Shabbos will merit to have many kegs of wine. That is a sign of wealth. Okay, fine. Okay, Rav Huna have a ragel davechal v'tanya pischa. Rav Huna would pass a certain door. The Rabbi Avin Nagara of Rav Avin the carpenter. Chazav v'ragel b'shraga tuve. He saw that he was very careful about having many candles, both for Shabbos and for Chanukah. Now, keep in mind, Chanukah, and we are so accustomed to the fact that we use the mahadrin min mahadrin, that we light, each person in our household lights one for each day. It wasn't always the case. They didn't have the money, as you see clearly from this Gemara. But Rav Avin was very careful that on Chanukah, everyone, they would do mahadrim. On Shabbos, he would also light many candles, right? 2 is the minimum. You could light as many as you want, right? So Amar Trei Gavri Ravri Nafkim Mahacha, he saw that he was careful on Chanukah. He saw he was careful on Shabbos. He said 2 great people are going to come from this household. Nafkim Minai Rav Idi Bar Avin, Rav Chia Bar Avin, and 2 great scholars of Idi. And Rav Chia Bar Avin came from that house. Rav Chisda would go by a certain door, Dvei Nasha to Rav Shizvi, by Rav Shizvi's father's house. Chazav Ragel B'Shragei Tuva. He also saw he was accustomed to lighting many candles. The Marsha points out, here, it was only Chanukah or only Shabbos. The Gemara is not clear, but it was only one. Amar Gavarabba Nafak Mihacha, a great person is going to come from here. Nafak Binai Rav Shizbe, and therefore Rav Shizbe comes from here. Many suggest this is actually the source of lighting a unique candle for each child. The idea is that the candles themselves, right? It's not. There's no Gemara that speaks about this minhag. It comes about at a later point. But the idea is the Gemara is saying that a person who's lighting many candles, it impacts their children, right? So the halacha is you light a candle, or really the later minhag is you light 2 candles. But this idea of lighting a candle per child, which I think is pretty almost universal minhag, is based on this Gemara, which speaks about the fact that the candles themselves are impacting or representing the fact the person's careful about lighting candles. They will have children who are special. So light a candle for each child, and the child, will hopefully be special. It demonstrates, again, it's not like a magical thing. It demonstrates the person's, desire to do mitzvahs properly and to connect to Shabbos, etc. And that's the thing that has I'm sure there's a mystical explanation as well, but the rationalist explanation is that it's demonstrating your commitment to Shabbos, and that has a spillover effect. Okay? Rav Yosef's wife would light Shabbos candles right before dark. Now, you read this, you're like, oh yeah, she's last minute, like all of us. No, she would do it because she wanted to show that she was lighting the candles for Shabbos. In other words, right, we had this principle, we touched on this principle in earlier times, and that is that if you do something, that's not connected to the time or whatever, then you don't necessarily realize what it's for. People lighting candles all the time. Nowadays, for us, lighting candles is so weird, it's so different, then it's clear it's for Shabbos. But for them, they would light candles for different reasons, or for the dark. So she would do it right before Shabbos. So I'm doing it for Shabbos. That's what she would do it for. Amar Le Rav Yosef, her husband told her, Tanya, it's taught in the Brisa, Le Yamish Amar Anan Yomam V'Amar Aish Laila. So the pasuk that speaks about the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire, when the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, it says that there would never be a moment when one would not be there. Okay, so there's always going to be there's going to be the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire, and the fact that it says lo yamish, it's never going to be removed. Melamed Chazal teach us she'amud anan mashlam amud eish v'amud eish mashlam amud anan. That the way Hashem would do it is that the cloud would come in while it was still night and be there, and then eventually the night one would leave, and the night one, the fire, would come while there's still the cloud during the day, and then eventually the cloud one would leave. But you'd see they come in early in order to ensure that they would, that they would not be a moment without one of them. But the bottom line is, what you see from here is that, the pillar of fire, the night watch, would come in at an earlier time, and it's still considered part of the night watch. But he was trying to convey to her is that you could light earlier, and it's still seen as a night thing. Don't think they have to light so early, so late, or else it would not be considered seen as light. But just like the pillar of fire would come in earlier, it's still seen as like a distinct night time, miracle. Similarly, light the Shabbos candles early, and that is okay. So when she heard that, she said, okay, so in that case, I'll light the candles very early, since I don't have to light it very early, very, very late. Amar lahu Saba, a certain elder, whenever the Gemara says that, the Mefarshim say, this is Eliyahu Navi. Okay, so Eliyahu Navi shows up. He says, no. Tanino v'shlo yaktim v'shlo ya'achir. It can't be too early. It can't be too late. Okay, so what does it mean too early, too late? If you light too early, then it's not evident that's for Shabbos. So what's the time? So the time is Plag Mincha. It's very important as now we get to later times. People want to make early Shabbos. It's very nice. It's a beautiful thing. But you can't do it before Plag Mincha. If you light before Plag Mincha, you're not actually fulfilling your mitzvah. Sometimes we run into this issue when we do these outdoor, whatever, the Shabbos pre-Kiddushes or whatever it is, and pre-Shabbos Kiddush, and sometimes before Plag Mincha, and there's a real you can't light. They're like, I want to light, then I want to come. Can't do it. You got to come, then go back home, whatever it is. If you light too early, it's not evident it's Shabbos. You have to light close enough that it's like quasi evening or like close to evening, and that's Plag Mincha. But you can't shouldn't light too late because you're going into Chil Shabbos. So the sweet spot is 18 minutes, and the earlier we're able to do, the better it is. But again, it can't be before Plag Mincha. Amar Rava, says Rava, further a similar type of halacha. Derachim Rabbanan Havle B'nei Rabbanan. A person who loves Torah scholars will have children who are Torah scholars. Demoker Rabbanan, if you just honor them, you don't love them. Havle Chas Navasa, you'll have sons-in-law who are Torah scholars. Dedachil Mirabanan, a person who fears Torah scholars. Who Gufei Havitrum Mirabanan, the person will become a Torah scholar. Vila Bar Hachihu, if the person doesn't have the capability of becoming a Torah scholar, Mishtamin Mile B'Keturba Mirabanan, the words will be listened to like that of a scholar, like a Torah scholar, like a Talmid Chacham. So the Gemara over here is conveying, again, there's mystical ways of understanding this. The simple way of understanding this, there's a beautiful Rabbeinu Yonah, who says, there's a pasuk in Koheles, Mishlei Koheles, I don't remember. Mishlei, I think, who says Ish Lafi Mahalalo, right? Ish Lafi Mahalalo, which means a person according to their praise. Which the simple understanding, you look at the regular Mefarshim, is that the way you know about a person is how they praise him. In other words, you want to know, you want to get into business with someone, you want to know about someone, you call someone, how do they praise him? Ish Lafi Mahalalo. But he says no, Ish Lafi Mahalalo. You want to know who a person is? Listen to what they praise, what they get excited about. Ish Lafi Mahalalo is a person according to the praise that they convey. Is the person getting excited because of, I don't know, the new restaurant, or is the person getting excited because of a new shir? What are the things that animate us? That's really how we're defined, and that spills over to our children, right? Our children really are going to be, we could preach all we want, but the bottom line is when they see us animated, when they see us excited, when they see the things that really get us going, waking up early in the morning, whatever it might be, the things that are really important to us, those are the things that spill over. Whatever we could talk and we could preach, but the things that really move us, those are the things that spill over, and that's the same idea over here. A person who really loves Torah scholars, it's not that they're teaching the children, go, love, become a Torah scholar. No, a person sees their chaviva, their love for Avos Torah, their love for the Torah, that has a spillover effect to their children. Okay, fine. Let's go a little bit further. Now we go back to our Mishnah. It's interesting. We're not done with the Hanukkah discussion, and this seemingly is like an interruption going back to our Mishnah. Okay, some first try to explain that it does have relevance to Hanukkah, but one way or another, we're now going to define one of the laws in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said you cannot use shemen sreifa for oil. Burnt oil. What does that mean, burnt oil, right? So the Gemara is going to explain what it is. V'lo b'shemen sreifa, what does it mean that oil that must be burnt cannot be used for Shabbos? My shemen sreifa, what is this oil that must be burnt? Ama rabba shemen shel truma shnitma. We're talking about truma oil that became tameh. Truma oil that became tameh, you are not allowed to eat, but you are allowed to burn. You're actually allowed to have hana from it. But on Shabbos, nonetheless, he says you can't do it. In other words, for shemen, truma oil that becomes tameh, you're allowed to benefit from its light, but for Shabbos candles, you can't do so. Why not? First of all, why is it called shemen? Oil must be burnt. Because it needs to be burnt. So why on Shabbos can't you use it? In other words, during the week, you're allowed to benefit from oil of truma that became tameh that you have to burn. So why on Shabbos can't you do so? It's beautiful. He says, since there is a mitzvah to burn it, a person in their excitement to do the mitzvah, they may say, okay, it's not burning enough. And they're going to tilt the oil, tilt the lamp in order to get it to burn more, and therefore that's the concern of your person in their, zrizus to the mitzvah is going to go ahead and be over on Shabbos. So if that's the case, then on Yom Tov it should be allowed. On Yom Tov you're allowed to add more fuel to your fire. Why did why does the next Mishnah say that you're not allowed to use this oil even on Yom Tiv? There should be no issue. Gemara says, yeah, you're right. On Yom Tiv, there's no intrinsic issue. We don't allow you to on Yom Tiv because you're going to end up using this oil on Shabbos. You're not going to know to distinguish between, this is a Yom Tiv oil, this is a Shabbos oil. No. Can't do it on Yom Tiv either for that reason. Yom Tiv atu Shabbos. Rav Chisda Amar, separate, different reason. We're not afraid a person in their zeal is going to go ahead and tilt the lamp. We're talking about a case where Yom Tov falls out on Erev Shabbos. Okay, so again, it's a case where Friday is Yom Tov, Shabbos is Shabbos. Okay, Lefisha insert from Kachim b'Yom Tov. There is a halacha which we'll get into shortly, but we're not going to. For now, let's just accept it as a fact. You are not allowed to burn Kachim on and disqualify Kachim on Yom Tov. Okay, there's a halacha. You can't do it on Yom Tov. That's the reason. So we're talking, even though it said you can't do it on Shabbos. So the Mishnah said you can't use this oil on Shabbos. We're not talking about all cases. We're talking about a case where it's Yom Tiv that leads into Shabbos. In that particular case, you can't light this oil, meaning on a regular Erev Shabbos, you could. He's not afraid you're going to tilt the oil. But we're talking about when the Mishnah said you can't use this oil on Shabbos, he was talking for Shabbos, he was talking about a very particular case where Yom Tiv falls out on Friday. There you can't use this oil because there's a halacha, you can't burn a disqualified kachim on Yom Tiv. That's the particular case. As the Gemara says, technical issue. The next Mishnah, the next part of the Mishnah says you're not allowed to use this oil on Yom Tiv. Meaning, if the second memra, the next Mishnah says you can't use this oil for Yom Tiv, right? So that means the first Mishnah was not talking about a case where it was using for Yom Tiv. It was talking about a case where it's just Shabbos. So Amrav Chanina Misura. Yeah, you hear the question? Another, right? Fine. Amrav Chanina Misura. Matam Ka'amar. No. The way to read the Mishnah is that the second one is explaining the first. Matam Imalik Mishemes Rev Yom Tov. Why are you not allowed to use this oil on Yom Tiv that falls out before Shabbos, Lefisha and start from Kachim Yom Tiv, since you are not allowed to burn, Kachim on Yom Tiv, that's why. So in other words, Mishnah number 2 is explaining Mishnah number 1. Tanik Vasdar Chisda, we have a brisa that goes like this, which backs up this second shot, called Elush Amar Imalikim Em Shabbos, all of those, all the oils that we said we cannot use on Shabbos or for Shabbos, Malikim Em Yom Tiv, you are allowed to use them on Yom Tiv or for Yom Tiv, Chutz Mishem and Sreifa, Lefisha and start from Kachim Yom Tiv, except for the one of oil that must be burnt. Why? Because you're not allowed to burn kachim on Yom Tiv, and that's why you're not allowed to burn this oil. So this second shot is backed up, and we're going to get into a little bit more detail. But first, we're going to go back to Chanukah, and we'll come back to the Shem and Shreifa halacha. Okay, what I wanted to share one very important thing, and I'm actually blanking on what it is. What was it? I don't know. Okay, fine. We'll come back to this tomorrow. Have a great day.